So, I'm scrolling through Steam and I noticed a game in the popular upcoming category that's called Gloomwood. The screenshots kind of reminded me of the old Thief games that I totally love, but with more of a horror themed inspiration. Well, not to say Thief isn't scary in its own right. Well, then I did some research, found the developer, they're New Blood Interactive, and they're the same people that made the games of Medieval, Ultrakill, and Dusk, all of which totally kick ass, and I wonder how I even let Gloomwood slip under my radar in the first place. Well, luckily it has a demo, so I loaded that thing up and quickly got to taste the latest that old-looking new video games had to offer. So the game opens up and you're thrown into a dark Victorian-era looking town drenched in fog and totally walled in with decrepit buildings pieced together from greasy, pixelated stones. And from the get-go, the game really does feel dreadful, but I mean that in the best way possible. You head up an elevator and begin the game by crawling out of a dark hallway. The number one word to describe this setting is just bleak. The world is devoid of life and reminds me of the levels from Thief 2: The Dark Age where Garrett's sneaking through the alleyways back to his apartment. It's pretty cool. In fact, I'd say this game wears the Thief influence pretty proudly upon its sleeve. The main character has to move quietly throughout shadows in a steampunk type setting, stealing coins and finding keys in order to progress throughout the level. You press Q and E to lean around corners and enemies can be alerted to your presence by sight as well as sound. There's a pretty well thought out lighting system too that causes you to have to be aware of where you're standing at all times. Sounds exactly like Thief, well, all aside from one thing, and that's that you get to have a gun. Yeah, in a way this demo feels like H.P. Lovecraft's Thief with guns. You still aren't strong against these tin men in top hats with axes, and at first I died repeatedly because I would get caught, start firing the gun, and then alert every other tin man around to where they just start swarming me. Pretty soon I did get into this groove of sneaking around by pressing control to crouch down, holding shift to silence my footsteps further, and then holding the left click once I'm behind their backs. He'll pull back the sword, the main character, and plunge it right into their ass. It's kind of like in Thief where you hold the left click down to bludgeon the guards in the head with the blackjack, but the difference in this game is that instead of the choice between knocking the dudes out or killing them, you just have the sword and the instant kill is your only option. The lighting and stealth system do work pretty well too, and I think that it can hold a candle to the similar lighting systems and stealth of the Thief games as well, no pun intended. Outside of stealth, let me get into my first minor complaint, and that is that the combat got to be a bit too easy. The sword has a block mechanic that totally negates any kind of damage the enemies might have done if you just time it correctly, and trust me, it's pretty damn easy to time it right. Maybe it's just because I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring recently, but the pattern is really quick to understand. It's attack, attack, block, attack, attack, block, over and over and over again. With any amount of patience, you can just navigate your way around the enemy's patrol patterns and kill the first one or two in any given area, and then run over and have a sword fight for the last one if you want. If you're pretty skilled at stealth games or survival horror games, you're gonna want to play it on hard mode, otherwise this demo is a total cakewalk. So as I made my way skulking about the village, one thing that really stood out to me was the outstanding sound design. I wore headphones when I played this, and I suggest you do too to truly immerse yourself in the environment. Church bells toll ominously in the distance, people cough from some unbeknownst illness behind the walls of their old homes, and the mechanical breathing of the enemies makes you stop in your tracks as you try and figure out where it is they're standing in some dark corridor. It's really great stuff, and helped keep the tension nice and tight throughout the duration of my playtime. The overall goal of the demo is to collect these two medallions in order to break the seal off this door and end the level. The first one is pretty straightforward. You eventually make your way past some guards in this prison to steal the rat medallion stored inside the evidence room. The pace is slow and steady on your way there as you peek from corner to corner, taking out guards one by one, and the level design of these alleys works really well. I never found myself getting too lost. If I wasn't sure what to do next, I could easily just head back to the room I had just been exploring to find a key to a door I'd missed or a lever I maybe hadn't pressed. And I'll praise the visuals real quick. I know the look they're going for is retro and therefore it has to be rough around the edges, but nonetheless, it gets the point across, and there were a few times I gazed up at this tower in the distance to just admire the view. Anyway, after you bring the first medallion back and place it in this hole in the wall, the second one is located in the sewers. The journey there starts off straightforward enough, and I'm ready to wail on some more Tin Man ass until the game opens up a bit to let out its survival horror side a bit more. All of a sudden, what this note in the game refers to as crowmen appear and really start fucking up your whole entire world. I wasn't feeling too scared in the game until the first time one of those guys ran up and took me from behind. Again though, with a little patience, it's pretty easy to just stab each one to death and block their attacks no problem. And you might be asking, well, where's the gun? Simply put, I didn't find myself using it that often. Ammunition is scarce as is anyway, and the block is foolproof against even the Chromens, so you might as well just get used to slicing each enemy up instead. I could see in the full game the level design becoming more intricate and situations may arise where the gun will become necessary. In fact, there is a small part in the demo where you just drop into this room with 3 of the Crowmen, and shooting the first 2 is a must so you don't get swarmed while fighting the third. So I guess that's a sign for things to come. But for the most part, as long as you don't get swarmed, the demo is just best played with the sword. The enemies are pretty creepy in low light or from far away. It isn't pleasant to have them suddenly run up on you out of nowhere either. The lifelessness of the Tin Men is pretty disconcerting at first. After a while, the lack of any kind of character or colors or design sort of just makes them forgettable, and I hope that the full game has larger enemy variety for at least more enemies with some sort of personality. Bringing Thief 2 back up again, that game had robotic enemies, but they would speak to you when hunting you down just like the human enemies, and with those creepy ass distorted voices too. These guys change their eye color from green to red while they just sort of meander over to you, and it just isn't as scary not having something sentient chasing you down. The Chroma's design is decent. I think they're wearing khakis, it's kind of hard to tell. The fast, jerky movements, elongated appendages, and tall stature all help to make their section of the game the true sign for how scary the final product is hopefully really going to be. Once you defeat the Crowmen in the sewers, you get the last medallion and can finally unlock the magic door. And inside is the interior of a castle where you make your way up the stairs into a large room, which is a pretty stark departure from the dismal dark alleys and sewers you were just in. You know, the way the rug meets the tile floor and the stained glass windows, yeah, I'll say it again, this whole place looks like it's a lost level from like some late 90s Thief 1 or 2. The levels in that game that were in castles, manors, or just large buildings with labyrinthine interiors where you could just get lost were always my favorite from those games anyways, so I'd be pretty interested to see more levels designed like this in the final game. Anyway, this is where it ends, and you're pretty soon just brought to a page with info on how to get the full game. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed what I played. Despite my few complaints, this demo has me looking forward to what seems to be a pretty solid game by a developer with a fantastic record of making titles in the throwback gaming genre. The combat is a little easy to cheese, but that isn't really the focus of the game. The stealth gameplay and horror-themed environments work to create a promising look into a solid horror game. If you have Steam, give this demo a shot and let me know what you think. I'd love to know. Thanks for watching.